Efforts to bring about a lasting ceasefire in Ukraine appear to be fading as divisions again emerge between the two key players, Washington and Kyiv. John Lough is head of foreign policy at the new Eurasian Strategies Centre in London. He says many details in the proposal still need to be worked out.
The United States has indicated that it is prepared to recognise Crimea as part of Russia. That is a big change. It's also proposing that the conflict effectively be frozen, and that means that Russia will retain control of those territories that it's occupied since 2014. It added territories, of course, after February 2022, when it began its full-scale invasion. And from the Ukrainian side, well, what do the Ukrainians get out of it? Well, supposedly they're going to get some robust security guarantees, but those are unspecified, and they're not going to be given to Ukraine by the United States. I should have added that the issue of NATO membership for Ukraine is already off the agenda. The United States has indicated that it's not going to support that. But otherwise, the Ukrainians are assured that they will get some compensation for the damage caused to the country as a result of the war. But again, it's not clear where this will come from. So I would just describe this really as the outlines of an agreement and nothing more, because the devil is going to be in the detail.
What has the reaction been from Ukraine from these talks?
Well, the Ukrainians felt that they were effectively being asked to recognize the incorporation of Crimea into the Russian Federation. And that's one thing that they have categorically and consistently refused to do. And so President Zelenskyy said that again, that's something that we're simply not going to agree to. And the response that I understand from the White House is that Ukraine is not required to do this. It's simply the United States that is going to recognize the incorporation of Crimea. So President Trump then said that, Zelenskyy's statement was unhelpful, it's harming the negotiations, we're on the verge of getting this agreement done. Well, I think that remains to be seen. President Putin is clearly, I think, giving a little bit of ground and understanding probably that with the help of the United States, that he can get an agreement he can live with relatively quickly if the US then continues to put pressure on Ukraine. Whereas if the United States were to walk away from this process, then he would have to fight for probably an unspecified period, and he might get there in the end and defeat Ukraine, but it would take a long time, be very painful. And it's not clear that there would be great support for doing this in Russia itself.
How important is the topic of Crimea in these talks?
It's a very sensitive issue. Now, where President Trump is correct is that Ukraine effectively ceded control of that territory back in 2014 when Russia first invaded the country, annexed Crimea immediately, and the Ukrainians at that time didn't fight. And Trump has said, well, if you wanted that territory, you should have fought for it. But what he has omitted to say is that the American side at the time, President Obama was in the White House, told the Ukrainians not to fight. And they were actually in a very poor condition to do it. So the Russians sent in a bunch of what they described as little green men, polite green men, who were soldiers without insignia. Nobody really knew what was going on immediately. And then suddenly they had the peninsula under control. So for Ukraine, it's really seen as a long-term task of trying to get the peninsula back. And they've said we're not going to be able to achieve this by military means. It's something we have to do by diplomatic means. So for them, it's very important that Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its incorporation of that territory is not recognized by Western countries. So the United States, by doing this, if it went down that road, and I believe that President Trump can do this simply by an executive order, that would break with the tradition that we have become used to in Europe since the end of World War II.
The US has repeatedly said that it would abandon talks if there's no progress. How likely is it that the US would pull out altogether?
I personally think it's quite likely that if Trump can't get there in his first 100 days, which is up at the end of this month, then he's simply going to say, well, I gave it my best shot. It was much more difficult than I thought. He'll blame almost certainly the Ukrainians for not supporting his efforts. And then he'll just wash his hands of it and go off and do something else. So I think Putin, for his part, recognizes that is a real danger. And that probably suggests why he's said that he is actually ready to talk bilaterally to Ukraine. Because up to now, he's not wanted to get engaged with Zelensky personally. He's wanted to do all the negotiating through the United States.
So what are we expecting to see next?
We're expecting to see another visit by Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. He's this real estate developer who's taken on the role of solving conflicts in both the Middle East and in Ukraine. He's due to meet with Putin, I believe, for the fourth time. And it's the expectation is that Putin will, I think, commit to this agreement. And then the United States will say to Zelensky, look, it's now up to you because we've got the Russians aligned with what we're proposing. So, take it or leave it. That would be my expectation.